everybody, and welcome to the lounge tonight. It's a Friday night. I don't even know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. I know it's the end of July sometime. Oh, I'm looking at the clock there. It's 9:03 on Friday, July 30th. Can you believe that we're almost into August? Yes, the energy is deep. It's dark. We're going into our subconscious. Things are coming up. Things are coming out. And I figured, hey, tonight's a chill night. Are you guys coming to chill with me or what? I got my hat on. I said, you know what? They don't care if I'm not curling my hair, but I do have makeup on. I do. I put on a little bit of makeup. But this is all about chilling out, going deep, and being okay with wherever you are today. If you're feeling a little bummed out, if you're feeling a little tired, if you're feeling a little sad, if you're feeling like me and you're saying, hey, I'm just not going to go and get all sussied up because I'm going to be comfortable. It's just being authentic. We're in Chiron Retrograde till December 15th. That means going into our wounds. That means going into our deep, our dark, our shadows, and doing our dark night of the soul work. And without going into the pain, without going in and letting it through, you can't get into the joy. You can't get into the other side of things. So where are you at on your journey today? Where are you at on your journey of the soul? And do you feel a lot coming up that you just want to say, go away, go away, go away. I don't want you. I don't want you here. I don't want this discomfort. Embrace it. Let it come to you and let it give you its message. What is it trying to say to you? What is the message that your pain or your grief or your sadness or your anxiety, what is it trying to say to you? And if we keep running from it, we're not going to get the message. So today's message is wherever you are, there you are. And don't force yourself to be anywhere that you're not. So let me see who's here. All right. Paula, not surprised. You're always the early bird catches the worm. I always like saying hello to you. Hi, Tracy. How you doing? Michael, every time I see you on here, you're somewhere new. Are you traveling the world? What's going on with you, Michael? It's very good to see you tonight. So I am so happy to see some of you. Feel free to get in the comments section. Say hello. If you're shy, I don't care. Say hi anyway. I will say hello to you. Shara, how you doing? Happy Friday to you. Thanks for coming to the lounge tonight. And tonight we have such a very special topic. I remember I had a couple of sessions this week, and one of my clients was like, I feel like I have intuitive abilities and I just don't know if it's time for me to delve into them, to let them out, to turn on that faucet. A lot of people are afraid. A lot of people had maybe bad experiences in childhood where they were scared by a spirit coming in or whatever, or they just see too much, or they just feel too much. And they say, you know what, I'm just not ready to open up to my intuitive abilities. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We have a very special guest on. Her name is Cynthia Singleton. She is an author, teacher, and empath. And I'm just going to read a little bit of her bio to you. Are you captivated? Are you guys captivated by intuitive possibilities? If so, you have much in common with author Cynthia Singleton. A teacher, author, empath, Cynthia has held a lifetime interest in unexplained phenomena. I want to hear about that. I'm going to be asking some interesting questions. Cynthia encouraged audiences just like you guys to explore their world and discover their human potential. Supercharge your superpowers on a sacred journey with Cynthia in amping your abilities. 77 ways to awaken, explore, and ignite your intuition. Wow. That certainly is a lot of ways to amplify your intuition. I want to hear at least about 3 of them. With over 9 titles in print, Cynthia shares a love of poetry, nature, photography, and cats. Well, I'm a cat person, so we definitely vibe on that. So what are your hidden intuitive gifts? Okay. Are you feeling like there's some intuitive abilities that you have? We're all born with them. A lot of people say, oh, Marisa, like, how can I get to be a medium? Or how can I get to be a medical intuitive? Or how can I get to be a psychic? Well, it's not that it's not like being a lawyer, doctor, or basketball player where you just say, hey, how do I get to do this? And I give you a book and you figure it out. No. Basically, when we had the school for about 12 years, and I'm transitioning into online courses as we speak and developing intuitive Development 101 and your beginner series, it's not about like you coming into a class and saying, I want this ability, give it to me. And I give it to you like, through a drive-through. Here's your happy value meal of, burgers and fries, and here's your instructions on how to eat it. No, we have to find out what your ability is, what your strength is, because every one of you came into this world born with divine spark, born with divine intuition. And each one of you has a special gift, and everyone is different. Every soul print is different. So while some people would come into my school and say, I want to be a medium, they may have found that they were really good at holding people's items and doing prophecy, or some people saying, I don't ever want to be a medium, coming in, and then they become a medium, right? So we have to find out what your abilities are and then take like a pencil, sharpen them, fine tune them. That's great. But what I want to know from Cynthia is the people that are coming to me saying, when is it time? When is it time to activate my intuition? How do I do it? Okay, so we're going to hear from her in just a second. I just like to say hi to a few more people. Maria, good to see you. I hope you're getting on all that we talked about, Maria. You have to give me an update, right? Cindy, hi from Missouri. Good to see you. Tracy, personally, I'm great, but everything happening in our world is bringing me down. Well, you know what? I always tell people, take a news fast, because the news media is going, it's just like watching just negative energy all the way through. Take a news fast, take a break, because the news is going to change anyway. Stephanie, Carol, and you are watching from Wildwood Crest tonight. Great to see you guys. I always love seeing you guys. Thanks for coming on. So without further ado, let us welcome author, teacher, empath, and she's going to say, Marisa, I don't know what to talk about, but we're going to get her to talk. Cynthia Singleton, how are you, girlfriend?
Hello. Good to be here, everybody, and Marisa. Everything you were just saying just so resonates to the path in my life. And so, yeah, now is the time. And it's so funny that you talked about intuition like a faucet, because I write about that in my book. Intuition is like a faucet, and you can turn it on, tune into it, almost like a radio dial turning into a certain frequency. And yeah, I think now is the time to tune into intuitive potential. And I'll bet a lot of people here have. And it's great to hear that people are asking you too.
Yes. Yes. And I want to hear about you. So you talk about in your bio this unexplained phenomena. You love to research that. As a kid, did you have spiritual experiences or psychic experiences that what made you kind of go into this realm in your life? What was the craziest thing that happened to you that kind of broke this open for you to actually write a book about it?
Yeah, what's so amazing is as a kid, I did have intuitive experiences. I lived in a home where it had a ghost or spirits or entities or whatever you might call it. I got psychic impressions as a children, but we definitely had specific activity in my childhood home. And I didn't know that the rest of the world didn't have that experience. It's kind of like, there's water when you turn on the faucet. Well, each home might have a ghost. It was just
each home you had a ghost. Every house you lived
in. What I'm saying is I didn't know that the rest of the world didn't have a ghost till I was 7. I just thought it was a way of being. My parents did not discourage conversation about it. It was just how I grew up. And it wasn't until I went to a slumber party with my older sister when I was about 7. And at the end of the night, some of the girls at the slumber party were saying, oh, let's tell ghost stories. And my sister and I were like, awesome, we'll tell you about our ghost. That's when I had like the rude awakening of, oh my gosh, people don't believe in ghosts and people are really scared about ghosts. And over time, my definition of ghosts and spirits have changed. But that's what I was calling it at that age, was the ghost in our home.
So what happened in your house? I mean, did you physically see an apparition, or did things move, or what happened in your house that you were like, oh, there's definitely something here? Like what would happen?
Yeah, like I personally would experience a few different things. Like I might wake up in the middle of the night and see like lights, but there was a particular form that would show up in my doorway, and my sister would talk about it too. That looked like it was just standing in the doorway, like a little wispy white cloud, and it really kind of felt like something was watching over us. And it wasn't until later in my life did I realize that my mom recently said that it was my grandmother had died in that house on her side of the family. But we also had like poltergeist activity, if one were to kind of define just pretty active activity. Like we would hear in the middle of the night, like things moving around the kitchen, like pots and pans banging,
Wow.
clanging. But again, it wasn't something that I really learned to fear as a child. And I know that that might strike fear in listeners right now. But if one only knows that, it
It's
doesn't
normal.
seem too terrifying. It's just like a way of life. So,
So you with this apparition or this wispiness, you felt it was more of a protector. You felt like it was somebody who loved you. It wasn't some foreign entity that was there to scare you. Did you feel peace coming from this spirit when they would visit? Was it always at the same time every night, or once a week, or once a month? How frequent would this
yeah.
entity visit?
It was random. And you know, now that I have an adult perspective of it, I'm kind of guessing that there were different activities in the house. But when I saw the form in the doorway, which was kind of random, it wasn't necessarily a certain time of night. It was always like if my sister woke up in the night, uh, that she would see it, not always, but that was the pattern. Is if we saw it, it was when we woke up in the middle of the night. And yes, it did feel like a protector. In fact, it almost kind of looked like it was holding something like a candle or something. It felt like it was keeping sweet watch over my sister and I.
Well, that must have felt really comforting to you.
Yes, yeah, it
And was
was.
there a time in your life where these things just stopped, or was it, did you move out of the house, or is it the house still in the family, and do you still have this going on, or was there a time when you remember that maybe the spirits moved on?
Yeah, well, what was really interesting is we did move out of that house. So there's like two little parts to this. Is one is after that slumber party when I learned, oh my gosh, people are scared of ghosts. I think that was the beginning of shutting down. But it was also when I was in third grade that I did indeed move to another house.
Mhm.
And it's funny, we had a girlfriend who later went to an open house at that house well after the time we were out of it. And when she showed up at that house, she said to the people there, she said, "How's the ghost?" And they were flabbergasted they that it was like somebody knew about the ghost in their home.
Yeah, so you think your grandmother stayed there and didn't come with you?
Um, it's really hard to tell. I'm intuitive, but not to the extent that you are, Marissa. So I'll get impressions, I'll get imprints, I'll see lights, I'll see forms. I might get a short message for somebody, but I don't know that I can really read into, was it for sure my grandmother? Was it,
Oh, I
I
think it was.
was it? Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. So I'm just wondering, when you moved in 3rd grade and you were still really little then, I mean, 8 or 9 years old, did
right.
she come with you, or did you feel that presence was still watching over you? Or do you feel like when you went to that next house that things were kind of clearer from there?
When I went to the next house, things felt uh, a little bit more, yeah, clear would be the word. It doesn't mean that I haven't experienced things that probably weren't my grandmother
Yeah.
in other homes or locations. For sure, I've experienced a lot of activity in my life, but that kind of felt like that experience with that entity did stay there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know because I deal with a lot with real estate, people buying houses, selling houses, all the things you're talking about. And sometimes if a spirit doesn't want the house to sell, or they want it to go to a certain buyer, they will not let that house sell until the right buyer that they feel comfortable with gets in the, like, they will make sure it does not sell.
Well, that makes me feel happy for the house.
Yeah.
Because it was a sweet place. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So we go to your childhood, and then what made you feel inspired to actually write this book and to help people to awaken this potential within themselves? What was that turning point for you that made you decide, hey, I'm going to sit down? And I mean, writing a book is like really hard and it's like pushing out a baby. And I mean, you have to over and over and over again, refine. What made you take on this enormous venture to get this information to people?
Yes, there are two parts to that. Is I always remained kind of a closet person who was interested in unexplained phenomenon. So I had kind of followed things behind the scenes, not really in the prescriptive, this is how you do it world, this is how you become successful. I didn't really talk about it out there, but behind the scenes I did. And a few years ago is kind of when things started opening up. I was taking more workshops. I was connecting with more people who would actually talk about those sorts of things. And the book itself was one night when I came home from a dance class. I do ecstatic dance. And I was kind of in a high vibrational mood. And I walked in my front door and I just felt kind of this feeling of, I've got to sit down and write. And
Wow.
so within just like 3 or 4 hours, the whole outline of my book, that's now a bestseller, just outlined itself within a matter of hours. And there's a part two to this is a week later, I was part of a meetup group that was an intuitive meetup group, but there was no mention of writing or publishing or anything like that. But what's so amazing is I got an email from that meetup group, and the leader of that group was saying, I'm starting a publishing company.
Oh my
If
goodness.
you guys have a book in that
Wow.
genre, go ahead and submit something. So I only had the outline. So I sent this whole like thing to her saying, okay, this is what I've got. And she said, okay, send a few sample chapters. And what's so amazing is like within that weekend, I wrote out 3 chapters and sent it off. And so Marisa, in many ways, is kind of inspired how amazing it felt, or inspiring how amazing it felt to almost feel, and I've heard people talking about channeling, but it almost felt like channeled, like it was just coming through me. And it was just amazing to experience the synchronicity of like this opportunity handing itself to me on a silver platter.
Talk about manifestation and listening to the universe and having that guide you. I mean, I've heard stories like this before where maybe there's people, for me, it's been like a 15-year journey of like this book thing, but I've had many experiences where I made a decision to do something and it's kind of like you have the intuition, and a lot of times the people on the other side, but I feel like it's a soul group or guides that are kind of put together. Like if you're going to be writing a book, you're going to get spirit guides who are kind of, know what to do in that area to help you, guide you. So I think yes, the people on the other side kind of give us that information, but I think our soul guides, our spirit guides are the ones, and everybody in this chat I know has had that experience where you get inspired and you're like, wow, I would love to do that. But not a lot of people actually take the action and actually be like, okay, I have the inspiration, and it stops there. You actually, and I believe, because I have a 30-day manifesting course, I talk about this. It's people wait for that perfect time, that perfect window of opportunity to be in their life, to be like, okay, well, when the kids are out of school or when work slows. And I'm like, I tell people, there's not ever going to be a perfect window of time. It's just, that's your way of sabotaging the situation. It's not ever going to happen where you're going to feel it's a perfect time or that you're ready to take that action on things. And people sometimes wait for that perfect idea or that perfect answer. And it's like, just start, and I'm sure your book refined itself as you went along and things happened as you went along. And the book was different than it started out as in some ways.
For sure. Yeah, it's like the content came out. I have 9 self-published books, but this one was the one with a publisher. And I learned so much from the experience of working with a publisher is, getting the content out was for me the easy part. And I'm a teacher. I used to teach fourth grade. I used to teach in elementary school and whatnot. And so I've taught writing. And for me, despite being a teacher, like the editing was the most challenging piece. And my publishers were great in offering a couple of sessions with writing coaches. So I was able to refine the process along the way. But I don't want that to deter listeners, because if you just remember the goal behind it and the impetus of reaching audiences and the love of whatever your passion is believing in it and letting it come out. And I completely agree, Marisa, that it might not be a perfect time, but that's part of what I introduce to people in my book is you've got something to offer the world. Humanity is awakening to our potential. And while it might be a different signature way that we express ourselves intuitively, creatively with our passion, let's bring it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your book real quick. Let me get to where it is. Oh man, I have all this information here. Hold on.
Sure.
Okay, hold on one second. I got to get the banner. Okay, so Cynthia's book, Amping Your Abilities, available on Amazon.com. Now, we have 77 ways to awaken, explore, and ignite your intuition. Can you give us a little sneak peek into just a couple of those so that we can feel like we're getting in the book, just a little sample?
I would love to. And by the way, I think it's going to come up at some point. If one were to go to my website, I have 7 easy ways to supercharge your superpowers, is what I call it.
Yes.
And a couple of activities that we could do, or we'll start with one. This one that we're about to do is in that offering as well.
Awesome. So if you guys go to intuitivesuperpowers.com, which is Cynthia's website, you can get her free gift, 7 ways to supercharge your superpowers. And you could be super along with Cynthia because she is super. And then if you say, you know what, I don't need those 7 things, I'm going right to the book. I just want all the information. You could go to Amazon.com, best-selling author right here, right now. You want to ask Cynthia a question. I mean, now's your time in the chat. Like, don't be shy. Ask a question. Ask her about that. So let's just talk about 3 of those things. 3 of the 7 things.
Yeah.
Give us your favorite one, your favorite way of amping up your intuitive abilities. What would that be?
Actually, it's one that I have been doing for many years of my life. I don't know if folks know that. They probably don't know that I'm a photographer. I'm really creative as well. So one of the things that I like to do that reminds me of tuning into the subtleties in life is I take a mental snapshot every day. And what I mean by that is in each day, I hope to capture something potent and powerful that I'm in tune to in my life. And that is one way to start fine-tuning your intuition. And so, for example, it might be I'm driving along and I see, that dog with their nose up against the window and see the elation and their tail wagging. And I'll take a mental snapshot of that. And again, it's seeing the world more deeply around you. It might be humanity at its best, like walking into a grocery store. I love seeing somebody open the door for somebody. Or it might be not always the positive things. It might be things that really move you, or it might be raw. It might be the intensity of seeing that homeless person who is struggling and yet feeling for their experience. So the mental snapshot is not just a visual thing. It's a feeling into your surroundings. And it is one way to fine tune your intuition every day. And I like to think about, I would love to see a reel of my mental snapshots that I've taken every single day of my life. And sometimes it might be more than one per day, but my recommendation is to folks is try one per day. It only takes a second. Like right now, I'm looking up at my kitty on her kitty tree right now, who's resting. So, and we could even invite folks right now. So if you were to look around your environment, what is it that captures your attention? Like for me, I'm seeing the little whiskers wisp off my kitty cat's face. And to me, it's just really beautiful to tune into that little subtlety. As she's sleeping, they're moving actually a little bit. So yeah, if you want to try it, Marissa.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
I actually looked around the room and I have this picture that my daughter painted of this polar bear, and it's like this dark sky in the background with snow, and it's like it was so awesome that I framed it and I keep it on my desk and I look at it and it just gives me a great feeling inside.
yeah. So it's not just a visual thing. It emotes something in you
Yes.
deeper
Yeah.
in your soul. And that's the invitation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I did have a conversation with the client the other day. She was just completely drained in her life, where I feel her like life force energy was kind of like at zero. And she's like, I really want to tap into my intuitive abilities. And she had so much stress on every multidimensional level: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, psychic. I said, now is not the time. It's just, you got to refuel your tank. You got to refuel, because if you're opening up these abilities and you have nothing to give, you have nothing in your tank. I believe that's dangerous to do. How do you feel about that?
What's interesting about that is there are two parts to my book. And one is, I can't remember the exact wording of it. It's something like building your foundation. And it's building the foundation. It's filling our own gas tank, so to speak, with the things that build us up first. And then the book progresses into more elaborate, intuitive exercises and activities. So I would say it is important to take care of ourselves. One of my chapters is self-care. One of my chapters is allowing, and there are things that can get in the way of us feeling like we're not ready. So yeah, there are some foundational pieces to taking care of ourselves first before we try to save the world, so to speak.
Right. And I think I remember one of my clients, he said, you have one of the most dangerous jobs in the universe. You're on the front lines, and people don't realize that. They want to glamorize, oh, you have this special superpower, this mediumship, or this ability. And it is very dangerous. You're in between this world and the next. You're opening yourself up to, yes, there's light, but there's also other things too. And you have to be protected. You have to be always doing self work, because there's a reason why some people in this industry, the psychics could get a bad rap, you know what I mean? Of like the crystal ball and the neon sign and, all those negative connotations, because those things exist, right? So we're all clumped into this one place of, whatever it is. And it's just important that people understand it's not something to play with. It's something, when you open it up, that you need to protect it, and you need to, but your physical vessel is the channel, right? So it just doesn't exist up here. Your physical vessel has to be grounded. It has to be balanced. It has to be stable. And you have to have energy, life force energy, to kind of like be able to actually take in that energy, that divine source, and actually tap into it to refill that portal, right? I don't.
Yes, absolutely. And what's so funny as you're speaking of that, I had mentioned working with a couple of writing coaches, and my my main publisher gal, she was an intuitive too, or she is an intuitive. And one of the things that I had done in my writing was speak pretty close to what you're saying. And some of the things that I wrote about were protection. And she invited me to reword some of that, because we don't want to necessarily scare people, but we do want to be aware. So I did reword some things of, before you do this activity, surround yourself with love and light, bring your vibration up. And so that does definitely play a role in my book is, come from a place of love and gratitude and intention and high vibration. And, some of the things in my book are pretty simple and straightforward. That might not necessarily be such a big thing, but like if it made me think of, as you were talking, like Ouija boards. I'm somebody who is of the philosophy of, I think of the movie like The Exorcist, and I read the book too, and I think it was like they said that the little girl was playing with a Ouija board on her own. I don't know for sure, but this is a recollection that I have. And that's not something I would recommend is, when you get into something that deep and direct with spirits, come from a foundational wellness. And again, in my book, I offer ways to build that foundation and build from there.
Yeah, that's really exciting. There's so many things that we can kind of get into. And Paula, she writes here, I think my abilities were the cause of severe anxiety attacks when I was a young adult. And I mean, I had a lot of anxiety when I was a young adult. And it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? That's what I always like to ask. Sometimes when you are sensitive, Paula, and when you are feeling things, actually feeling and sensing spirit energy could feel like an anxiety attack. And I don't think a lot of people know that, but change in frequency and energy could mimic almost identical to anxiety and a panic attack. So it's kind of, I would like to know more, Paula, about what you experienced, and if you feel like, how do you feel like they were the cause of it? I'm kind of interested to hear that. But I do want to tell people that feelings of anxiety and depression, well, yes, they do. Obviously, there are people who have just, plain old like chemical imbalances that are anxiety, depression. But also being a medium, being intuitive, being an empath could mimic mental illness as well. You could feel that grief, that pain of that spirit. It could cause you to like be very depressed and to go in a very low, you could just feel that person's sadness. The anxiety is a spirit wanting to get in touch with you, wanting to talk to you, wanting to connect with you. And even people who say they see or hear the voices or they could be told by someone they're schizophrenic. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's these things, these spirit communications very much mimic, can seem very much like anxiety and depression. Not to say, like, I just want to be clear that people are like, oh, Marissa's not saying anxiety and depression don't exist, okay? Because I live with anxiety. But, excuse me, I also have had very, very similar, where you can almost tell the difference of those types of symptoms when you're having communication. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I have a story that I'd love to share with Paula and anybody else who may potentially be an empath too. Is I have a chapter on tips for the empath. And when I was a little girl, I remember going to a business lunch with my mom, and I write about this story. And I walked in, and we were going to my favorite Mexican food restaurant. I adore Mexican food, by the way. And so I was like tickled and thrilled to be walking in, and there was a big table with, maybe 10, 12 chairs or something like that. And I was sitting there and I was feeling elated, like I said. And then as people arrived at our table, it was really bizarre to me that all of a sudden I went from feeling happy and elated and hungry and excited to feeling like sad and overwhelmed. And I was a bit of a perfectionist as a kid. So I remember excusing myself from the table to just go into the bathroom and cry my eyes out. And that was a story that stuck with me for many years because I had no idea of what just happened. And it was only later in my life did somebody say, "You're an empath." And they didn't tell me in the context of that story, but I put that story together with, I'm pretty sure I was feeling somebody else's energy that day. And that was one of the more memorable moments in my life. So, yeah, Paula, you're not alone if that's maybe how you experience it or anybody else. And I love hearing too, Marisa, that you're saying it might be that a spirit is trying to communicate with you, and not always a bad one, but just that
Right.
change in frequency, like you said.
Or somebody wanting to get a message urgently, you know what I mean? Or try to get a hold of you. It could feel like that urgency. It could feel like that pressure to get a hold of you. And that spirit might be having anxiety of its own. So let's see what Paula has to say here. I had no control over my ability. Anytime I reached a restful state, things would randomly happen and there was no stopping it. I'd leave my body and travel to be with typically a loved one. Okay. So Paula, it seems like you're having a lot of experiences that most people don't normally have. You're astral traveling, you're visiting people on the other side. I'm not surprised you were having anxiety attacks because you probably were not here on this earth. You probably weren't very grounded. You were probably existing in those higher levels, which could definitely feel like anxiety for sure. Thanks for sharing that with us. And Tracy says she's an empath. And most people who are watching this show, I'm sure, have that ability.
Right. Yeah.
So Cole is asking, what does a blackbird? And I have no idea what that means. I'm not sure what that means, Cole. I'm sorry. Not anymore. Thank God. Okay. Well, Paul, it seems like you're grounded a little bit more. That's great. That's great. So yeah. So let me bring you guys back to Cynthia's book here. If you want to connect with Cynthia, just go to intuitivesuperpowers.com. And you can get her book on Amazon.com. She is a best-selling author, Amping Your Abilities. And there's a little subtitle here, 77 Ways to Awaken, Explore, and Ignite Your Intuition. Awesome. And if you want to just get a little sample before you buy the book, go to the website and get your 7 ways to supercharge your superpowers. So that's awesome. Well, I thank you so much, Cynthia, for being here. And is there anything else you think you'd like to share with our audience about your book or about igniting your or enhancing intuition?
Yes, I'd love to leave the message as, I would encourage, I was a teacher most of my life in some sort of teaching capacity, even elementary school. And my wish for anybody is to embrace your potential. Humanity is awakening to intuitive potential. And I'll bet you have that whisper, that nudge, that itch about something that feels big for you. And I would encourage people to listen to that and see where it leads you. We're all born with intuitive gifts and intuitive abilities. And again, like a faucet, you could turn it on with intention and, conscious.
Oh no, where did Cynthia go?
So looks like we went out for just a second.
Yes, so, there you are. Cool, you're back.
Yeah, so I would encourage people to follow that whisper, that knowing, that nudge of something that feels really important to you and perhaps likely important for humanity too. And I would encourage people to explore and play and listen to their inner intuition, because it can only improve your life and the lives of people around you. And in my case, I write about quite a bit about a kitty cat that I lost. I wear a ring for him. His name was Louie Dewey Mocha Latte, and we can improve the lives of our pets too. So I write about a lot about Louie in my book. He's tiny, tiny, and on the spine of my book too. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh,
A little picture of him up here, and I do write about him. And I'll bet there are people here who have lost a pet or an animal that they hope to connect to, who have played a really important role in their lives. So that's part of the journey in this too.
how many cats do you have, Cynthia?
I have one right now, and her name is Sunshine Mokalua. And yeah, one of the most memorable animals in my life that still plays a role in my life from the spirit level. And really, I wrote about an incident that helped me connect across the veil even more because I was trying to reach out to him. So he's helped fine tune my abilities by my efforts to reach out to him. But yeah, Louis was one of the biggest souls, if not the biggest soul, I might claim, of my life.
Oh, well, we all love our pets, and I know I've lost a few myself, especially the one I was actually connecting with today. And what's good news is that our cats and dog friends reincarnate a lot quicker than humans. So you might just find that Louis is going to come back and join you again.
Yeah, and for now I've got Sunshine, which is I did go to a psychic, pet psychic, or intuitive, and she said that Sunshine is part of Louis' soul family and my family, and she feels very much of the vibration of Louis, just in her own special, sweet way. So she's a big soul in my life right now too. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you. And I'm just going to put up your links one more time. intuitivesuperpowers.com. Go to Cynthia's website. Get your free gift, 7 ways to supercharge your superpowers. And go get her book at Amping Your Abilities, 77 Ways to 1 Second. Awaken and Explore and Ignite Your Intuition on Amazon.com. And as always, if you guys want to get my monthly energy forecasts, they are free right now. You just have to put in your email in the description of this video. If you just go to the description of this video on Facebook or YouTube, you just put in your email. You have to be on the list to get my monthly energy forecast. I go over almost every day of the month and go in depth as to what you could experience with our intuitive weather forecasts and your energy forecast for the month. And those go out on the 15th of every month. So if you're not signed up to receive them, they are not public. You're not going to see them live. You do see my weekly energy forecast live, but you're not going to see my monthly ones wherever you go. So you do have to be on our email list to get that. So just go up and sign up for that if you would like to get my monthly forecast. All right. Thanks everybody for coming. And we really appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful night. Bye. Have a great Friday.